Keir Starmer's Labour government is facing its most significant backlash yet, and it's coming from one of the most vulnerable groups in society, pensioners. The controversial decision to cut winter fuel payments for millions of elderly Britons has ignited public outrage, with heartbreaking stories emerging of pensioners struggling to keep warm as the cold winter months approach. Labour, a party traditionally seen as the protector of the working class and the vulnerable, now finds itself at the centre of a growing scandal that questions its commitment to those very principles. One such story that has captured the nation's attention is that of 72-year-old pensioner Sue Ashcombe-Hurt. Speaking to Martin Daubney on GB News, Sue detailed the extreme measures she's been forced to take just to stay warm after being excluded from winter fuel payments due to Labour's cuts. "My way of dealing with it really is to go to bed at 6 p.m. and take stuff with me that I can do in the bedroom because I'm warm in bed," she revealed. "I can watch the telly in there as well because I've got a TV up there, so that's how I cope with it." Sue's story is unfortunately not unique. Labour's decision to restrict the winter fuel payment, which once helped around 10 million pensioners, has left millions without this vital support. The cuts mean that only pensioners on pension credit or other means-tested benefits will continue to receive the annual payment of up to £300. For the rest, who don't qualify for these benefits, there is now little to no assistance to help cope with soaring energy costs as the UK braces for one of its coldest winters yet. The anger from pensioners has been swift and fierce. Peter and Florence Fanning, a couple from Coatbridge in North Lanarkshire, have taken legal action against both the Scottish and UK governments over the policy change. Peter Fanning, 73, voiced his frustration. "It's frightening to know that a couple of months ago we thought that £300 would stand us in good stead during the winter. To hear all of a sudden, out of the blue, that we're not getting it, doesn't sound fair to me." Peter and his wife, like many other pensioners, are now worried about how they'll make it through the winter without the financial aid they had been counting on. "I'll end up in bed with socks, a hot water bottle, and a book, because I can't keep the heating on all day long," he added, summing up the bleak reality faced by so many. For these pensioners, the winter fuel payment was more than just a bonus, it was a lifeline. The cuts have left the Labour government scrambling to defend its decision. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who has come under increasing pressure to explain the rationale behind the cuts, attempted to deflect blame during Prime Minister's questions by pointing to the fiscal situation inherited from the previous Conservative government. Starmer argued that Labour was left with a £22 billion budget deficit, which required difficult decisions to stabilise the economy. "Pensioners under Labour will be better off because we're going to stabilise the economy after that lot lost control of it," he insisted, referring to the previous administration. While Starmer may be banking on long-term economic growth to justify his decisions, many Britons, particularly pensioners, are focused on their immediate needs. For them, the issue isn't about abstract numbers or future projections, it's about how they're going to stay warm this winter. As Sue Ashcombe-Hurt put it, "What I say to Starmer is you're supposed to be the party of working people. You're supposed to look after pensioners and the disabled and the worse off, and yet the first thing you do within days of coming into power is take money off the pensioners and the poorest pensioners at that." Sue's words echo the frustration of many who feel abandoned by a government that promised to protect them. Labour, traditionally the party of the working class, now faces accusations of turning its back on its core supporters. It's not even just the rich pensioners, as it should be absolutely disgusting. It is absolutely disgusting, and he should be absolutely ashamed of himself. "I don't know how he lifts his head up in Parliament," she added, her voice filled with disappointment and anger. Adding fuel to the fire is the fact that this isn't Labour's only scandal in recent weeks. Starmer was embroiled in a separate controversy just last month when it was revealed that he accepted over £2,600 worth of tickets to Taylor Swift's Eras tour, while pensioners like Sue were being forced to cut back on heating. The fact that Starmer attended the concert while pensioners were left to suffer in the cold has only heightened public anger and raised questions about his priorities. The fallout from Labour's winter fuel payment cuts has been particularly severe, with even Labour's own supporters expressing disappointment. A recent YouGov poll revealed that 43% of Britons believe Labour has not done anything positive since coming to power in July. When asked about the worst thing the government has done, the overwhelming response from voters, across all age groups, was the means testing of winter fuel payments. For many, this decision epitomises the government's failure to protect those who need help the most. Even Labour voters are divided on the issue. More than 1 in 5 Labour voters, 22%, said the government has yet to make any positive improvements, and many of them pointed to the winter fuel payment cuts as their primary grievance. For these voters, Labour's handling of the issue feels like a betrayal of the party's traditional values. One respondent noted, "Labour was supposed to be the party that looked after us. This isn't what we voted for." Meanwhile, the opposition has seized on the scandal to score political points. Conservative MPs have criticised Starmer for breaking his promises to the British people, while Reform UK has called for the government to reinstate the payments immediately. Reform UK leader Nigel Farage said, "This government claims to stand for working people, but where's the evidence? All I see is a government that's more concerned with maintaining power than actually helping those in need." The controversy over winter fuel payments isn't just a matter of public opinion, it's now a legal battle as well. Pensioners like the Fannings are pursuing legal action, arguing that the cuts are unjust and discriminatory. The case is likely to garner significant attention in the coming months, putting even more pressure on Labour to reverse its decision. But the damage may already be done. As winter draws nearer, more and more pensioners are sharing their stories of hardship and struggle, and the government is finding it increasingly difficult to justify its actions. The stories of pensioners going to bed at 6 p.m. just to stay warm have struck a chord with the public, and many are wondering whether this is the kind of Britain they want to live in. For Keir Starmer, the winter fuel payment scandal represents a major test of his leadership. If he cannot find a way to address the concerns of pensioners and reassure the public that his government is still committed to protecting the vulnerable, Labour could find itself losing the support of the very people it claims to represent. As one pensioner put it, "If Labour won't stand up for us, who will?" With public anger growing, the pressure on Starmer to act is mounting. Pensioners, legal challengers, and political opponents are all calling for the government to reverse its decision and reinstate the winter fuel payments before the worst of the winter weather hits. But so far, Starmer has remained steadfast in his defence of the cuts, arguing that they are necessary for the long-term stability of the economy. Whether or not that argument will hold up in the face of increasing public outrage remains to be seen. What is clear, however, is that the winter fuel payment scandal has become a defining issue for Labour's early months in power. And for millions of pensioners across the UK, the stakes couldn't be higher. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. We are trying to provide you the newest political scandals.